Hello everyone. Welcome to MLSN's IG Live. This is our first IG Live webinar. So thank you so much for taking your time out of your long weekend, your schedule, and participating and sharing your insights and experience. So on behalf of MLSN, I thank all the three speakers today. So the topic of our live today is what to expect from a legal internship. So before I begin, let me go through the event flow. So right now we will do the introduction of the speakers, and then we will allocate about 15 minutes to the panel discussion. So we will talk about legal internships and everything of that sort. And the last 15 minutes, we will resort to Q&A session. So all of the followers watching us live right now, so if you have any questions like in the middle of the panel discussion, please save it until the end of the Q&A session. So we will have like a special time for you to engage with the speakers. So before I begin, is there anything the speakers want to add? So let me introduce the speakers. So Miss Cynthia is currently a senior associate at Mrs. Nazmi Zaini Chambers. She graduated with a Bachelor of Laws Honours from Cardiff University, Wales, and obtained a Master of Commercial Law from University Malaya. Her main area of practice is dispute resolution, including commercial and construction litigation. She has represented multinational companies, government-linked companies, public limited companies, and high-profile individuals in contentious disputes at all levels of the court. She is an advocate of women's rights and has co-authored articles which were published by CLJ and MLJ. She is also currently the co-deputy chairperson of the Bar Council's Women's Rights Committee 2022-2023. So we'll move on to Mr. Isaac Kamaruddin. He's recently graduated with a Bachelor of Law with honors from University Malaya. He was one of the student leaders in University Malaya. He was also the ex-president of First Residential College, University Malaya. He also recently interned under the Right Honourable Chief Justice of Malaya, Tun Tengku Maimun. He also had experience interning under Tan Sri Shafi Abdullah at his firm, Shafi & Co., as well as interning at the Research and Analysis Wing, Office of Dato Sri Azalina Othman Said. So last but not least, Mr. Nicholas Preston. He is a second-year law student at Brickfields Asia College, undergoing the UK transfer program. He is actively involved in various leading student organizations and initiatives outside of the classroom. He recently interned at three prominent law firms such as Shen, Delamore, Lee, Hishamuddin Allen, Gledhill, and Screen. This experience has undoubtedly shaped his perception of the legal industry and provided him with valuable insights into the direction of his career. So before we begin the session, let's give a warm-up. Let's start with Miss Cynthia. Miss Cynthia, what is the most rewarding experience you ever had as a lawyer?
I would say good question. I guess it's quite subjective, but for me, it would be rewarding if I'm able to secure the kind of result that my client is hoping for. So for example, the client doesn't want to go all the way to trial, they want to strike out the suit from the very beginning, and I manage to get that, then it will be very rewarding for me.
Same question for Mr. Isaac.
I was just about to correct you. I'm not a lawyer at the moment, but
Yeah.
as soon to be lawyer, whether I actually become a lawyer, that's a different question altogether.
Yeah.
So maybe I can share a little bit about the thing that fascinates me when I was interning in the places that you just mentioned. So I was very lucky. A few of my friends, we managed to intern under the Right Honourable Chief Justice Tun Tengku Maimun at a very fascinating period of time whereby the SRC case was still in operations. So at that particular moment, we managed to see the case unfold in front of our very eyes, and indeed, at that particular time, we can safely say that the judiciary independence was challenged and it prevailed at the end of the day. So I would say that was the most memorable time for me when I was interning. Thank you.
We'll move on to Mr. Nicholas. What is the most fascinating and rewarding experience interning in most of the top firms?
I think for me, it's mainly after I guess, studying a lot of theoretical law in my first year of university, seeing that the law I study in the books and in class, no matter how many like essays I wrote, I really didn't get a grasp on like the actual effect of that law. And seeing the law in action and actually like having effect on major cases where it affects people's life, it affects people's business in a drastic way, really helped bring to life for me like how prominent and how important and how much impact the law can have in practice.
True. The practical aspect of it, right? Brings life to the
Yeah.
mundane words and the thing we read in books, lah. Yeah. So
Yes.
let's move on to the questions of the panel discussion, the real meat of the whole event, which is what is a legal internship? Like in your own words, or maybe we can move this to Miss Cynthia.
Thank you for that question. Again, I think legal internship, in my own words, is an opportunity for law students to see how the legal industry works. So like what both of you has mentioned, it is when the law come to life. You could see how it's been applied in real life, but most importantly, you get to see a glimpse of your possible future if you were to step into the legal industry one day.
Thank you, Miss Cynthia. That's very helpful. Mr. Isaac, in your own personal opinion, do you think that it is important for law students to do a legal internship?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I think that it's very important for a very simple reason. When you practice the law, when you read the law, actually, when you read the law, you only learn about the substantive part of it. Meaning to say, you only read it and you only learn from textbook, from lectures. But when you actually intern, let's say internship, you don't have to intern at a law firm. You can intern with the governmental office also. So at the end of the day, that practical side of it, that is what is actually important, because no matter how good you are with the substantive law, if you cannot practice it, then it remains to be seen whether law is actually for you. So yeah, I think it's very important, not only for you to learn the practical side of it, it's also for you to determine your future pathway. Again, when you practice law, it does not have to be that you have to be a lawyer per se. You can always become a judicial clerkship and whatnot. So yeah, for those two reasons, it's very important, I would say. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. From what I hear from Miss Cynthia and Mr. Isaac, so basically doing a legal internship gives you the full picture of what is going to happen if you were to head into a law career, right? So for Mr. Nicholas, where can law students apply to do their legal internship? I'm pretty sure you are very qualified to answer this.
Yeah, sure. So I think the majority of my experience comes from corporate internships, right? So I think there are a few ways students can go about applying for this. Firstly, it's directly to the firms itself. So majority of firms nowadays have websites. They have portals where you can find the email. Either in the portal itself, you can attach your CV and your interest for the internship and submit it, or you can find the emails and then mail them your application. I think a lot of times this might be quite intimidating for students because they don't know what kind of information to include, because it's like quite wide open. Different law firms might expect different sources of information. I think another great way to apply for internships as well that has grown over the last few years is through organizations like catered towards students. So like MLSN now has their virtual internship program, and in the next few weeks or months, KPUM as well will be launching their 30 Days of Summer Internship program, the yearly flagship event. I think that's a great opportunity for first-time students applying for internships, because you simply submit one application. You sort of have more guidance because our student organization is there to give you a few tips on information you should include. And then the one application can then be linked to many different firms as well. So it expands your opportunities in that way. So I think that's a great way for first-time applicants to tackle the daunting task of applying for an internship.
Thank you so much. That was basically 101 for all the law students that are thinking of applying for internship. So Miss Cynthia, I'd like to ask you, if you were to revert back to a legal intern, what are the advice you would give for legal interns to look out in organizations? Like what characteristics and what features of a legal organization for you is important?
I guess I can't really answer that in the point of view as if I'm an intern, but I probably can say something from the other side of the coin. A lot of interns or a lot of students, they just send out mass emails to apply for an internship everywhere. And they think that we don't know this. They think the law firms or the organization doesn't know this. But actually, it's quite obvious because we receive a lot of applications, and we can see that it is a very generic application. So if you are keen to do an internship, you should do a proper research. You should identify the kind of works that you want to be exposed to, the kind of, if you're applying to a law firm, the areas of law you're interested in. If it's commercial law that you're interested in, you must actually justify why is it the firm that you want to intern at. Maybe because the lawyers there has been involved in some notable cases that inspires you or something like that. And then when you say all these things in your cover letter, it's quite obvious, it pops up. So I guess that's my opinion on it.
All right. Thank you, Miss Cynthia. I didn't expect that. Yes, now I learned something very important, so I have to be very careful in doing my CV if I were to apply. Thank you, Miss Cynthia.
Can I just quickly add on Cynthia's answer just now?
Sure.
I just like to say that I agree with her completely. When you send your cover letter to these firms, to these companies, you have to make it personalized. That is what's very important. For example, Shafi and Co, they dealt with a lot and lots of cover letters and applications. But when I wrote it, I made sure I mentioned the fact that Tan Sri Shafi'i did a lecture with us, and the fact that I was very inspired by his theory of equality of arms and all that. So that more or less helped me to secure that particular placement. So yeah, basically what Miss Cynthia said was exactly like a nail on the coffin, I would say.
Mr. Aiza, I would like to ask you, what are the general job scopes of a legal intern? Like what kind of work would they usually be involved in during a legal internship?
If you were to go to a firm, a legal firm, from my experience in Shafi & Co, Shafi & Co is very heavy on notice of proceedings, NOP. They take their NOPs very, very seriously. Basically, we take the jobs of the judicial clerks. And usually, the court has their own interpreters. They will write down and whatnot. But Shafi & Co would ask their pupils and also their interns to do the NOPs and also to write it down in verbatim. So as far as Shafi & Co is concerned, bundles, NOPs, those are the primary job scopes. But if you were to intern at the court, judiciary, if for example, you will be heavy on legal opinions, writing legal opinions, and also case summary. So those are the two things that are quite important when it comes to these two different branch of internship.
Yes, if I could just add it, actually, a lot of these things that legal interns and chambering students, they do at the very beginning of practice, it sounds very taxing and boring and mundane, but actually eventually you realize that all these are training. For example, when I just started out practice, as a chambering student, I had to learn how to fix the printer, because when we work in the office late at night and the clerks has all gone home, we have to know how to fix a printer. And those mundane things that you thought are unnecessary for you in the future are actually very important. So I just want to add on to that.
If I may, just a little bit more, the most difficult thing that I learned from Shafi and Co was not how to do NOPs or what, but it was actually to learn how to do the binders. That was the hardest thing actually. So yeah, when you are interning, when you are doing your pupil, it's actually basically you're doing secretary's work at times. Yeah. But that's the job scope. We have to go there. In order for you to become a lawyer, you need to learn the process. That's due process, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, talking about binders, I still remember back in intern, my fingers are all filled with cut wounds from all the binding.
Same, I still have a lot
Traumatizing.
of from
Yeah.
all the binding. We have to prepare so many bundles,
Yeah.
and I'll be sitting back in the office. Clerks has gone home. 8 p.m. She's like, Cynthia, you still don't want to go home? I say, I can't. We have to serve this tomorrow morning. So it's very normal. And that time I was already.
Yeah, I think we can all testify to the amount of paperwork involved in legal practice. Like you see in law firms, the lobby looks so pretty, but then when you go to the actual offices, it's just stacks and stacks and walls of paperwork and bundles.
The facade, they keep up,
Yeah.
Don't be fooled, but it's fine.
Okay, let's move on. So I think it's actually an add-on question for Mr. Nicholas. I remember we had a conversation before. So there is like this misconception, and I'm one of the perpetrators. So there's this misconception that smaller firms, you get to have more works to do, and bigger firms, you tend to have less thing to do. And after talking with Mr. Nicholas, I would say that it was very mind-opening. So, Mr. Nicholas, would you want to share your answer to that
Sure.
misconception?
Yeah. I think I don't know if there's a misconception because I can only testify based on like personal experience. I think a lot of people think like in smaller firms you get to do more of the actual legal work, and in bigger firms like you're sort of not supervised very well because the partners are busier. They're not so focused on individual interns. But based on my experience, that wasn't the case. I intern in large firms, so I cannot say how it is for smaller firms. But I think even in larger firms, it really depends on the partner or the associate you are placed under. And I was very privileged to be placed under people who were very fortunate, as they were very like attentive to my work. They guided, like when I needed guidance, they were there step by step to tell me how to improve on certain aspects of my work. And I don't think at any point I was given like truly mundane, unnecessary tasks. I got to do a lot of actual legal work in terms of like actually exploring the law in their practice, and not just paperwork and binding and those type of elements as well. So I know there's some misconception out there. People are afraid of larger firms because they think that you just become a glorified secretary. But I don't think that's entirely true.
Do you know
Thank
there's
you
a
so much.
saying,
Yeah.
"Yes, I'm glorified secretaries of rich men."
Yeah.
First advanced public, but yes.
Okay, for Miss Cynthia, I would like to ask, are legal interns legally entitled to allowances?
Legally entitled, I don't think so. I think it's an internship. I don't think they're legally entitled, but I think they should be entitled to allowances. They are helping works that the firm is getting pay out of, so I think they should deserve at least a little bit of cut, out of it. Yes.
Yeah.
So we do pay all.
And
I
if I could
see.
add to this as well, so like you mentioned earlier, I interned at 3 prominent firms in Malaysia, and unfortunately, none of those 3 firms paid their interns, which is quite unfortunate because there's a great learning opportunity. And personally, I have the privilege to be able to take the learning opportunity without being paid. But I can say like those 3 months were some of like the most expensive months of my life because of where the offices are located, to travel there, to like spend on food. So I think by not paying your interns, they're really starving, especially underprivileged students, on the opportunity to intern at some of these firms. And I think that's completely unfair and something that needs to change in the legal landscape in Malaysia.
Yes, exactly. I absolutely agree with Nick. When I was doing my internship not so long ago, but some time ago, I think the first internship I did, it was unpaid. And only towards the end of the internship, they had a chat with me and say, "Cynthia, if you want to be paid, how much do you want to be paid?" And I just throw out a figure, but it was supposed to be an unpaid internship. And the second internship, it was at a very big firm. And of course, we don't expect anything because when we are law students, we just want to get experience and the opportunity to have this kind of branding in our CV. But actually, when you're in the legal industry already, you will see that actually this is a little bit of an abuse, because actually interns are very important. They do help out a lot with a lot of the admin stuff and the research, I would say. So they do deserve some allowances at the very least.
True.
And if I may add, if you intern at a program, you won't get paid neither. So that's the reality of things, both in private practice and also in public service. Unfortunately so, as mentioned by Nick and also Cynthia just now.
Yeah, so this is something that future legal interns really have to take into mind. Perhaps, let's say, if they all become lawyers, maybe we can all make a collective change. We will see. We need to keep our fingers crossed.
The younger lawyers in the Bar Council, they are already fighting for a fair wage for pupil in chambers. So hopefully once that is successful, we can continue the fight with legal interns, but one step at a time, hopefully soon.
Correct. So let's move on. Mr. Aizat, what should a legal intern do in order to make the best out of their internship?
The answer would be fairly simple. Just be responsible and be dedicated. In some instances, this is practice. I've never done this, but people say that sometimes it would be best if you want to have extra work, ask for work. Sometimes that is the case because in pupillage and also in internship, of course, but mostly for pupillage, work will come as trust builds. Meaning to say, the more they trust you, the more they will give you work. If they don't trust you, if they see that you are unreliable, and they will stick you with secretarial works. But if they trust you, they will start to bring you to cases, to court, to be their partners in cases, those kind of things. So yeah, everywhere you go, no matter public services, corporate, even private practice, be responsible, be dedicated, be accountable. That is very important.
Thank you so much, Mr. Isaac. For Mr. Nicholas, because some people are more reserved or some people are shy or basically they don't have any prior experience. So sometimes they are afraid to reach out, let's say to ask questions, to reach out to partners and let's say get some work to do. What can you advise them to sort of like break out of their comfort zone?
Some people are naturally more reserved. But I think you sort of have to think about it from the perspective of the partners. What's the worst thing that can happen, right? If you approach them, you try to introduce yourself, you try to ask for advice, try to ask for work. If they truly reject you for some reason, I have no idea why they would. Maybe they're just really busy. They've had a bad day. What, like, you're only there for a month. You're there for 2 months. Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? You're not like destroying a long built relationship. There isn't much consequence to it versus the upside is there's far more upside to like taking the step out of your comfort zone and asking for work. You could potentially build a very useful relationship. You could potentially explore an area of law that you never knew you were interested in, but through that one conversation you may find an interest in that. So I think it's just to weigh what the upsides are and as well as like what the consequences can be and see that realistically you should just go for it.
Never try, never know, right? Take the leap of faith and you're always the one that benefits the most. So Miss Cynthia, what does an organization expect from a legal intern?
I will be quite frank here. Usually, legal interns are students, first, second, third years. So honestly, the organization or the legal law firms, they don't expect much from an intern. They don't expect the intern to give them a good research or a first good draft of the course papers. Nobody expect that. But we do expect, I guess, organization, they expect the legal intern to help the best they can in whatever the partner asks them to do. For example, we have an intern now. Interns, usually the helps that the firms will need ask for are like a organization of the list of 30, 40 clients. Or there's a lot of organization that you need, and the lawyers don't have time for this, and there's so many data floating around that someone needs to be willing to take up that mundane work. If the intern can do well in this, then there'll be an asset to the firm. And slowly, if you prove yourself well over and over again, you'll be given more and more serious work. And honestly, when I was doing my internship last time, I don't think I've learned much that was contributing to my practice now. But I think what interns should expect also from this legal internship with any organization is that this is an opportunity for you to make connections, for you to know whether this career is a career that you want to do for life, and also to make friends, make connections, because these people might be someone that you'll be friends with in the legal industry in the long run.
Thank you so much, Miss Cynthia. For Mr. Isaac, do you think that it is necessary for a legal intern to also be involved in extracurricular activities like participating in MOOC club, let's say, or in debate?
Oh, I would say it's absolutely necessary. I got where I am right now is because of those extracurricular activities. Because extracurricular activities, when you say about MOOC club, when you say about law society, they give you a different skill set that you will learn, which is a skill set which is very, very important to me and to everyone, should be important to everyone, which is soft skills, management skills. Because when you go into a legal internship provides you with the reality of the practice. Go to a legal internship, that is basically it. Create connections and whatnot. But in terms of soft skills, I would say it would be better for you to join extracurricular activities. But then again, what I'm saying is not everyone's cup of tea. I just feel that joining extracurricular activities is very important because it got me where I am now. So again, in life, there's a need for balance. If you can try to achieve everything, but in moderate, not necessarily like excel at everything, that would be best, I would say.
Thank you so much. That's very important. If you are able, it's good to join extracurricular activities because it makes your law student life more vibrant, and you get, like Miss Cynthia said, you get to know more people, you get to have more connections, and you get to interact with a lot of people, which is important when you become a lawyer because you're always interacting with clients, with a lot of people.
You need those connections one day when you start a law firm. You need all those referrals because without those, it's very hard.
I think I completely agree I completely agree with that as well. Like the majority of like what I want to do in my career, or like the ideas I have about the legal industry, did not come from the classroom. Like the lectures really don't teach you those skills. They don't teach you what the legal world truly is, and that just has to come from legal internships. And before that, because legal internships, realistically, you can only do it for a couple months of the year during your break. Like outside of that, it really comes from the connections you make in clubs, in societies, in different organizations. So it's paramount to the education.
Seniors than from the books, right, Nick?
Yes, definitely.
Life is your best teacher, especially when you go and work, and the stuff that you see in work are actually the things that will benefit you your entire life compared to, like, let's say books and what we learn in classroom. I would say that that is a very good support. In the end, what makes our life interesting, or what is like the real meat of our life, is actually what the experience we get when we go and work, because that will be the main part of our life. Sad
Yes.
to say, it's like we study to work and we live to work, sort of. It sounds kind of wrong, but it's kind of like that, sadly.
Yes,
Yeah.
actually, one of the most important thing, or one of the most important reasons of having all these seniors to talk to and get advice from is because a lot of students, when they are studying, I guess including myself last time, we always look at the legal industry as something that is so glamorous. We see lawyers as someone so glamorous. It's like in the movies, you know, everyone's wearing a robe every day. And then when you actually join the legal industry, when you're actually a lawyer, you realize that there's a lot of long nights involved, a lot of staying back past midnight, working through the weekends, reading a lot of things, getting criticisms, getting things thrown back at you. Words, I'm saying words, not objects. Those are frowned upon. Sometimes a lot of interns or chambering students, they say the seniors or the partners are harsh with them. But you also have to realize that at least these are your seniors and partners and not the judges, because we've also seen judges holding lawyers for not doing proper research and coming to court submitting on a case that's already being appealed. So yeah, so there's a lot of downside, but you know, this, if this is really the career that you want to do for life, then it's good that you speak to people who's done it.
True, true. Okay, Mr. Nicholas, I would like to ask you, what are some of the responsibilities that shall be maintained by the legal interns when interning in an organization?
One of the biggest responsibilities is knowing and maintaining that all the information that you have access to is private and confidential. I think that's something that really has to be emphasized in the legal industry. And like the first day of my first internship, they really drilled it into us, because we have access to cases that could cost a client tens of millions of dollars. And if you go and leak that information to anyone, it could be like hugely consequential to the client, to the firm. And like, I know some people think, oh, like, what's the big deal if I just go and tell my friends, go and tell my family, right? Like they're not in the, they won't have any effect in this. But I think it's just sort of the habit we build. Like once you start telling some people, it's easier to let it slip to people, like to other people. Like once you start having drinks with lawyers from other firms, it's easier to let it slip. So the importance is to, like, from the start, build a habit of not letting any private confidential information slip out, no matter the situation. And I guess other responsibilities is to maintain like a certain level of professionalism as well in the office. There's a difference between to class, and there's a difference between going to an actual office where people are paid to do work. And that's something that the earlier on you learn, and how to act there, I think it carries on throughout your entire career.
That's true, that's true. Professionalism is very important.
And if I may, I would like to add a little bit on Nick's answer in regards to confidentiality. That is very, very true. And that is even more important if you're planning to work in the public service, i.e. the judiciary. Because when you are interning with the judiciary, you are required to sign a form that is basically saying that you understand that a lot of the things that you're going to be privy to is under OSA, which is Official Secrets Act, and you cannot tell it to anyone. Like, for example, is that I heard SRC was the bomb, you know, the whole country was saying about it, and me and my friends we were privy to the details of it. So we had to bite our tongues essentially, and not to tell even our parents about it. No matter public service, private practice, wherever you are, confidentiality is very, very important.
I say in my case, it cost a client money. In his case, it would have caused a constitutional crisis if anything got leaked.
Yeah, that's true. Every action has consequences, so legal interns have to learn. You one day be a lawyer. So whatever you do will affect your client. That's something to really digest and really keep in mind. Yeah, so for Miss Cynthia, I would like to ask, do you think that it would be appropriate for a legal intern to do a human rights case? Or like he wants to do a construction case? Do you think that it's appropriate for a legal intern to do that? Let's say a request a particular area.
No issue. Very good. An intern come to us and say, can I be a part of this case because I'm very interested in that area of law? We'll definitely welcome that. It's amazing.
Yeah, that shows that they're very passionate in what they do and they're willing to be a part of that, right?
Yes, yes, of course. But if you ask to be a part of it and someone give you works for it, you also have to play your part in making sure that the works that you're given are being done properly. If you half-heartedly want to be, if it's like a big case and you ask to be a part of this big case, but you are not doing the legwork required, then it will be quite disappointing, and people are wondering, why do you even want to be a part of this if you're not going to do the work for it?
Thank you, Miss Cynthia. For Mr. Aizat, I would like to ask you, personally, what do you think is the most ideal period for doing a legal internship? The best length?
For this question, there's no one answer fits all, I would say. It
Yeah.
depends on what's your planning, what's your academic schedule is, and also maybe you have other plans. But there is an optimum time period for me, which is about around 4 to 6 weeks, I would say, where you get to learn about the intricacies of the law firm or the public service. But at the same time, you don't really feel like you're being stale. Like, oh, I'm doing the same work again. 4 to 6 weeks, I would say, is optimum. Even in the University of Malaya, we have our legal internship subject, and it is for a period of 6 weeks. So I believe about around that particular time would suffice.
I would say 4 to 6 weeks is the bare minimum. You can't actually learn much if it's a very short. I would say those are the minimum.
I did 1 month long internships, 3 of those. I think for the first 1 to 2 weeks, you have I personally had absolutely no idea what I was doing because I didn't really study the area of law that I was placed into. So the first 1 to 2 weeks is just like getting up to speed on the area of law, reading textbooks, reading the law, and like once you sort of get a hand on like the kind of work you want to do, and within 4 weeks, your internship's already over. Once you finally understand what is expected of you. So even 4 weeks is like considerably short. So I guess it really just depends what you want to get out of your internship. If you're already like really sure that you want to practice a certain area of law, having an extended internship in that period might be good. But if you just want to dabble in different areas of law to explore different areas, then I guess shorter internships would be better.
That's very true. It also depends on your commitment as well, like how long you can commit. Are you able to balance that with, let's say, your academics and a lot of different stuff? For Mr. Nicholas, I would like to ask, how early can a law undergraduate start doing their legal internship?
So I did mine in my first year. So I guess there's really no limitation how early you can start doing your internships. I know some students who did the internships after the A-levels, even before they even started their first year. So some law firms, more established law firms, might be slightly pickier. They only want second year onwards, or people who have already started their degree. But I think if you're really desperate and really passionate to find legal work, there's always somewhere you can work, especially if you're for free. There's always somewhere where you can find some work experience.
Because a lot of people, I would say within my friend circle, they would say like, if they start too early, they are scared that they are unable to contribute something because they are not sure with, let's say, how to do research. They're not sure with how to use databases. I would say that they are their own obstacle. Like they don't want to take that opportunity because they are scared, like let's say they are a liability to the company, or they will burden the partners. What do you think of that?
At any stage of a junior lawyer, there is a liability to the firm. They tend to make mistakes. They tend to screw up sometimes. And I guess for interns, that's slightly larger. But I think law firms have the expectation that interns are going to mess up as well. So they're not, like, law firms do not expect perfection out of interns. I'm sure of that. Otherwise, like, no law firm would hire interns. So go in knowing that you contribute what you can, but ultimately you're there. I believe you're there to, I guess, learn more than contribute.
Thank you so much.
Just a little bit, I just would like to add on that. If anyone is feeling like a bit scared that they don't have the necessary equipments to go for legal internship, that is a very valid fear to have. Again, everyone is scared. especially when you're jumping into a very unfamiliar territory. But again, what Nicholas said, what Cynthia said, it bears fruit, meaning to say that when it comes to internship, it is a learning process. And the other side, which is the firm, which is the public service, the courts, they understand that we will make mistakes and whatnot. But on our side, we need to try our best to minimize the mistakes. That is what we are for there. Learn and minimize our mistakes.
Yes, Miss Cynthia?
I was saying that I absolutely agree with what Nick and Isaac have said so far. Actually, the firm doesn't really expect much from the intern. They know the intern is still learning. The best that the intern can do is just doing their best and taking in the criticism, working hard to improve yourself as quickly as you can. That's all really.
Okay, so this question maybe I'll keep it open to everyone. So the three speakers can take it one by one, I would guess. So what should legal interns avoid while interning in an organization?
Don't overcommit. It's very easy, especially to go around like different areas of like for different partners practicing different areas of law. Like, oh, I want to join. What work do you have for me? What work do you have for me? But once you overcommit and then you realize that you cannot deliver, your reputation stays. Like I think the saying goes, right? Like you can do everything right and no one will remember. But the second you mess up one thing, that's the reputation you stay with. So don't overcommit when you know you cannot deliver the level of quality that's expected. Stick to what you can do and do that job well and learn from that. And if you have the capacity, then take on extra work.
One thing you should avoid is keeping problems to yourself. Law firms already know that interns are a little bit of a liability from the very beginning. But if the interns let the firm know that they are facing a problem with the research or with any other issues, they should raise it up to a senior or to the partner as soon as possible. Shouldn't keep it to themselves. Personally, if I have an intern, I would love if the intern asks me a lot of questions. Of course, not ridiculous questions, but questions that will help you in your legal internship. Don't keep it to yourself. Flag it up, raise it up, and if there are any problems that you encounter, if you say something wrong to a client or to another lawyer, then you should flag it up immediately so we can do damage control.
Well, on my side, I would say don't play the fool. This is a learning process, but if you make mistakes once, it's okay. But it's a recurrent mistake and it's the same mistake. What does that show of you? So that is one of the things I don't play the fool, because one of the things I would like to share was that when we were interning under the Chief Justice, we realized that it was a very golden opportunity. Not everyone can do it. Not everyone had the opportunity to be directly under the Chief Justice Tunku Maimun. So with that in mind, we had a particular weight on our shoulder that, oh, we're carrying the name of our faculty, we're carrying the name of our university. So with that, you have to always bear in mind that wherever you go, you are bringing the name of your law school. So if let's say you are given an opportunity to go to a prestigious placement in any firm or any office, remember that if you screw up, the name, not only your name will be tarnished, but the name of your law school as well. So you are closing down on the doors of any other potential juniors that or peers from your law school. So remember that, don't play the fool ever, because the legal fraternity is a very small fraternity. People talk. So that is why you need to make sure that you are in the best attitude possible when you go for an internship or a pupil later onwards.
Like what Isaac said, is absolutely correct. The legal industry is so small. Everyone knows everyone. Even if you're not doing the legal internship for your school, even if it is in your own name, you should always make sure that you are doing the best you can, not breaching the PNC, tarnishing the reputation of the law firm, because actually reputation is everything in the legal industry.
Cynthia, correct me if I'm wrong, but it is something that, let's say, a pupil from firm A, when he or she finishes the pupillage process and they are not retained for any reason, and when he or she applies to another firm, the firm will contact the previous firm. Why did you not retain this particular individual? So is that right, Cynthia?
Actually, yes. Actually, everything that you put on your CV, your future firm, your potential employer will sometimes, not always, but sometimes they will make a phone call to your previous employer to ask about your character, see how is this person like, nice to work with, was there any misconduct that he was involved in that would make him a bad candidate for this posts that we have for our firm right now. Even worse is if you're applying to companies, organizations with job postings as legal counsel, not as a lawyer, because in the legal industry, it's not really commonly practiced. But for, I think, legal counsel postings outside of the legal industry, they always do these background checks. They always call up your previous clients.
I
I think
see.
you very quickly notice how small the legal industry is and how easy word travels. Your reputation really precedes you.
So before we move on to the last session, which is Q&A, maybe we can do the last question, which is what motivated you to do law? Maybe we can start with Miss Cynthia.
Tough question, I would say. I'm not sure what motivated me to do law. I guess I just came to this by chance, and I'm someone who loves theory. I enjoyed biology, and it's all theory for me, and I love reading, so I took law. It's not inspiring, but there you go. I have been in practice for several years now, and I enjoy my practice. I really enjoy representing clients, and it's very rewarding, especially when we could get the kind of results that our client wants.
Thank you, Miss Cynthia. Maybe we can move on to Mr. Nicholas. Same question.
Yes, this is such a intimidating question. I always get asked this question by like everybody. Yeah, it's like an interview question. I don't have this big inspiring answer that, oh, I want to pursue justice or anything. I think for me, it's not really why I chose to practice law, because I haven't really chosen like 100% I wanted to practice law yet, but why I chose to study law, there's a few factors to it. I think I really, in high school, I really enjoyed English. English was my favorite subject. I really like reading. I really like writing. On top of that, I really enjoyed history as well and politics. So all that sort of played into like a law degree, and it's also for the practicality of it. At the law degree, you can then go down the profession of practice, or if you then choose not to during your degree, there's so many other options. So it's like interest of mine, skills of mine, combined with like practicality of a law degree. That's why I picked it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Last but not least, Mr. Aizat.
All right. Thank you. I'm not sure whether I should say this, but I'm gonna be very honest because this is it's a platform for us to share. Right. Personally, started to consider law because I wanted to be a lawmaker. So I was like, in order for you to create a very good law, you need to understand the law. So why not I pursue law? So that's why I'm not really sure whether I'm going to continue to pursue law. But yeah, that's the reasoning behind it, not to pursue justice, but to understand the nature of the law, how it was created in order, hopefully, to create better laws in future.
That's one question. The question is, do you think that it's a disadvantage for law students to pursue a law career without any internship experience?
I don't think it's a disadvantage, but I think during the interview for your pupillage, pretty sure they will ask you, what were you doing during your break? Because usually, even myself, I did my internship from my first year of law school during the summer break. So I guess what the partner interviewing you will ask is, what were you doing during the summer break? And you have to justify that with something, and you can't say I was at home sleeping for the whole 3 months. How would that reflect? So you have to come.
Mr. Aizat, would you want to give your answer to that?
Well, I have a slightly different opinion from Cynthia. I think that it is a disadvantage, but it is not a fatal disadvantage. Mean to say that when you, let's say if you're accepted to a firm and you don't have any legal internship backgrounds or previous experiences, you're gonna be starting a little bit backwards compared to the others. Mean to say they have a head start from you. But then again, it's not fatal. So if you are dedicated and also you are willing to learn, to put in the extra effort and hours, then you'll catch up to them in no time actually. But yeah, there is a disadvantage.
I think for me, I can only speculate on this because I have no idea, like in terms of the hiring process, whether recruiters actually look like whether it's a criteria or whether like having multiple internships actually plays an advantage when you present your CV to recruiters. I can assume that it might. Recruiters want to see people who have taken interest in the legal industry in the past, have taken interest in that area. So I think there's an advantage to it, but I don't think not having anything is a complete disadvantage either. So for example, if you have other extracurriculars or volunteer work, it sort of shows that you're interested in something other than just your studies. So I think that in itself would be beneficial and somewhat sufficient. But if you really just don't do anything throughout your 3 years in university, what are you going to put on your CV, right? You can't just put like your degree, your grades, and that's all. Like your CV will be completely empty. And I think, yeah, that might be fatally that might be a fatal disadvantage. In terms of like what Aizat said, I'm inclined to agree that like having an illegal internship gives you a head start in your pupillage and when you become an associate. But I'm not a pupil. I'm not an associate. I'm far from it. So I have no idea whether it will actually be beneficial to that, or maybe like being an associate is completely different and being like from a legal internship, so it really doesn't matter at all.
All right, thank you so much. So I think this will be the end for our webinar. So once again, thank you so much, Ms. Cynthia. Thank you, Mr. Aizat, and thank you, Mr. Nicholas, for taking out your time from a Saturday night and sharing your valuable insight here. And I hope that our watchers today learn a lot about legal internships. And if you're thinking of taking illegal internships, do go ahead and take that leap of faith. And it will really benefit you. Even if you are not, please don't look down on yourself. It's like they said, it's not a fatal disadvantage as long as you are able to prove your commitment, you are dedicated, and you are able to show that you are an asset to the firm. It's never too late to start. Do what's best for you. So thank you so much once again. I'm hoping you guys are having a very good long weekend because it's a public holiday on Monday. So have a good rest, take care, and stay safe, everyone. Thank you.